Good morning and welcome to another edition of the Kitchings Tables. And as always, on Tuesday mornings, we like to wake you up with something that will be important, informational, or both to your day. I'm your host, W. Earl Kitchings, as always. Joining me is my co-host, Ms. Ronleen Kennedy. Ronleen, good morning on this fabulous Tuesday morning.
Yes, it is Tuesday. Some people refer to it as Taco Tuesday. But I want to talk about today's News Tuesday.
Well, I don't know if you got any tacos over there already this morning, but we'll see what happens since it is Tuesday. We're going to be talking about something very interesting today, and our guest today, I believe, is a foremost authority on knowing just where this particular topic will be going. Our topic for today: pharmacy deserts. Pharmacy deserts. So we're familiar with food deserts. We've been told what food deserts are. Communities where there are not grocery stores to provide fresh fruits and vegetables. Uh, Areas where there's a distance of 5 to 10 miles to get to a grocery store. Most of the time, those food deserts are in low-income communities, whether it be black or brown people. Those communities seem to be without. Well, our guest is going to talk to you about the other side of that desert concept, which is pharmacy deserts. But before we get there, let me just share this with you. Economic and income disparities and inequality continue to contribute to the deficiencies in communities of color because of these two factors. Food and pharmacy deserts are prevalent in the neighborhoods where these minority lives. That's my own original citation. Economics and income disparities. And I've shared this a few times, but when there are significant income disparities, when significant incomes are not in place in certain communities, then those communities don't thrive as well as others. And when that does not happen, then you don't see businesses coming in that are important to the growth and vitality of those communities as you would with other things. It's amazing to me in a community where there are food deserts. However, there are not deserts of convenience stores or, and not to throw any shade on them, but there are no deficiency of Family Dollar, Dollar General stores in Black communities. There's no deficiency. And the other non-deficiency is the fact that in these same communities, you will find more per square mile per se. You will find more stores that sell alcoholic beverages. So these things contribute to the downturn of people of color, especially Black communities, having what they need in order to have vibrant lives, to have healthier lives, to have safer lives. These things contribute to it. You won't hear people really pointing a finger at it or talking about it, but they do contribute to it. But it all goes back to economics. It all goes back to economics, and it goes back to the difference in incomes. Because if you live in a community where the average income is, say, $100,000, that's a big difference over a community where the average income is about $35,000. That's a $65,000 difference. And when you have more people with that kind of income of $100,000+ living in areas, then you're going to see a more vibrant community. In a community where there's less, you're going to see a lot of deficiencies, more fast food places sometimes, but the places are more convenience stores, and you're not going to see the stores that need to contribute to the health and vitality of that community. So whereas a food desert has been something that has been on the radar since, I know since 2017, the United States Department of Agriculture reported that 39.5 million people lived in income areas or low access areas to getting to these grocery stores, which means there are no grocery stores in some of these areas, unlike the other stores I already cited. So that was the food desert. But when we talk about this pharmacy desert, that is layering on the fact that, okay, we're not getting any food or proper food. We don't have access to the proper food we need, and I've seen it with kids coming to school and they load up on snacks. They got all kinds of snacks. It's nothing worse than seeing a kid eating snacks and drinking a carbonated beverage on their way to school at 8 o'clock in the morning. But a child is hungry and they're just trying to fill their stomach up, although they will get food when they get to school. Still, when they leave that house to come to that school, there's a deficiency there. Now we're talking about the fact that we have deserts in the pharmacy industry. Pharmacies are not as prevalent in the communities of Black and brown people. And for whatever reason and why that happens, I don't know if it's on purpose or it just happens to be that way, but I'm sure my guest today will be able to share some light on that. Joining me today, please welcome a dear friend, an outstanding young man, a guy who has a lot going for himself, and he is on the rise for doing some fantastic things. Even though he's just a young guy, he's already doing some fantastic things. He graduated from Florida A&M with a degree, a doctorate of pharmacy from Florida A&M University. He opened his own pharmacy. He ran for Congress. He's now doing something in the corporate sector in the pharmacy business, but he has his mind set on doing some things that are positive in our communities. So would you please welcome me and bringing to our show today, Dr. Albert Chester. Doc, how you doing today?
Good morning. How you guys doing? Doing well.
Wonderful, wonderful. So we're going to just jump right in because I think this topic, when Ronleen brought the topic to me, I thought it's like, wow, this is an interesting topic that, again, we may not be aware of or people may not be knowledgeable of it, but it's something that is current and it is having an impact in our communities where Black and brown people live. So I'm going to let you just, talk about the fact or the definition of what's going on when we talk about pharmacy deserts.
Right. Like you were saying previously, just like with the food deserts, you have situations where in certain neighborhoods, certain parts of town, where everything is already, I guess for lack of a better word, deficient. Transportation, literacy, all those things play a factor. And then on top of that, you don't have a place where people can, go to a pharmacy. And, unlike, and I tell people all the time, unlike, seeing your doctor, seeing your nurse practitioner, with a pharmacy, we're the only medical professional with a, upper level degree that you can just walk up to and have a conversation. I mean, we take more, of course, pharmacology than your doctor or your nurse practitioner. I mean, of course, they take more anatomy and physiology. But when you talk about being able to have immediate access to a upper level medical professional, I mean, a pharmacist is right there for it. And that was one of the things what made me want to become a pharmacist, is because you have so much patient interaction. You have the possibility to have so much patient interaction. And when you have, locations where that is, not available or not around, the people suffer even more. When you have a food desert, food is the first medicine, first and foremost. So if you got bad food in your body, then you're not going to get the right nutrients, and then you're going to have to come see me. And then the fact that, you don't have access to a pharmacist, that's, double trouble. So now you got a problem that shouldn't have happened because you should have had better food or access to food. And now on top of that, it's going to compound to where the problem is going to, exacerbate because you haven't had opportunity to talk to that pharmacist to possibly curb, slow down, or even, get rid of the issue that you have.
So Doc, talk a little bit about the primary medicines that deal with the physical illnesses or ailments of Black people that you've had to basically either speak about or prescribe medicine for. Talk about those things and the effect that has had on the communities for people of color who are deficient in both food and medicine?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's kind of you call like the big three. You know, you have hypertension, dyslipidemia, which is a fancy word for high cholesterol, and then diabetes. You know, you get those three in the mix, now you got problems that are just going to compound and compound. Then you throw in the arthritis, then you throw in the, the GI issues, then you throw in the asthma, and they just constantly compound and compound. And what do you do? Because by the time a lot of times people get to you, I mean, they're late in the game. And it all starts, as someone who, enjoys history, and my mother's been a history teacher for a very long time. You look back to, they talk about systemic racism or when something started. This predates, a lot of us. I mean, at best, you may have been a young man when it happened, but, it goes back to when, President Eisenhower, put the highways through the black neighborhoods. When you started having, those expressways built, interstates built, and it splintered the black neighborhood, and you had, leaded gas that was, the toxic fumes being left, and we all know what lead does to the brain and to the psyche. It causes psychosis, and then you're talking about poor air. I mean, just all around, just a very, very bad situation. And I think there's ways to combat it, but we haven't been proactive. So of course we're going to have to be reactive in a lot of situations. But there's still opportunity to get better and to improve those things.
So, in your experience, and being that you had your own pharmacy,
Mm-hmm.
what kind of conversations did you have with those citizens in that neighborhood where that pharmacy was located, that you would have with them to talk about trying to find better ways to become healthy or to stay healthy?
Yeah, so I also had a pharmacy technician school in an area, and that's what jump started the pharmacy, because it was just feeding a need. I mean, if you know better, you do better. We offer, hypertension, classes on hypertension, whether what to eat, what not to eat, different suggestions to cook. The same thing with cholesterol, same thing with diabetes. So again, trying to get to the foundation, because I can push pills to you all day, but if your lifestyle is not improving, then all this really is in vain. But I mean, knowledge is key. But from a molecular and scientific level, when you got somebody, just like you were saying earlier, when you have kids that's drinking Czech soda and then eating a bag of Takis or hot chips on the way to school, you're creating addicts. That sugar is addictive. And if you ever look at the sugar content and those sodas or what you get at those convenience stores, I mean, they're off the charts. If we were just to measure how much sugar is in a soda, or some donuts, a pack of whatever honey buns, I mean, it's just crazy. But these people are put in these situations, and this stuff is shoved.
Well, we apologize for Doc freezing up on it. I'm sure he'll come back. But as he's talking about these things that cause problems in our physical diets, in our health, both mentally and physically, we have to understand that no matter what we want to do, what we need to do is to be more understanding and more deliberate in doing the things that are necessary to continue to give us good health. And when I spoke about those stores in the communities, and when I'm riding around, I'm paying attention to see the number of stores. And again, this is not to cast any dispersion on these businesses. However, we have to be realistic about what we're talking about. When we're talking about certain businesses inundating a community, when you drive a mile or 2 miles and you see one store, and ironically, if you see a Family Dollar, you're going to see a Dollar General. I mean, either right across the street or within a half a mile of that store. I mean, and I don't know if those businesses are connected, but it's just ironic that if you see one, you see the other. I mean, and not in distance to one another, but in such close proximity that you have to ask yourself, are they working together in order to fulfill this space to take advantage of people who live in these communities where convenience stores once upon a time were prevalent, and convenience stores now are more seen at service stations, but they saw a void, so they decided to fill the void with bringing in these stores, and for home products and other things, or personal products, all well and good, but some of the things that they talk about too is providing food. And again, the food problem is that as you would talk to medical and pharmaceutical professionals like Dr. Chester, it's the over amount of sugar products that are in these stores that cause problems. So, hey, Doc, I'm just talking about the fact that, in our communities, we have these stores, they're inundated, they're in close proximity, providing a lot of, as you were saying, foods and beverages for our children. And as I was saying, well, if a child is hungry and they only got $1, what are they going to do? They're going to buy what that dollar will get them. It's not a matter of them buying what's healthy, because what's healthy on the other side of this coin is, well, the healthy stuff costs more. It's unfortunate, but the healthy stuff will cost you more as the stuff that is more detrimental to your health. So speak a little bit about that, Dr. Chester.
Yeah, and I was really flowing. I hate my connection got messed up, but I remember when I was running, I would pull different studies, and I did a couple studies myself, and it was like it almost seemed like everybody was in cahoots against the community, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like if you look at a map in Jacksonville, where are the majority of your not diabetes, but your dialysis centers?
Exactly.
On the north side.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? Where are the majority of your Harveys? Why have a Harveys and not have a Winn-Dixie? Are you're trying to give me the bottom of the barrel stuff? It's really unfortunate, man. I mean, it's the powers that be are just really working against us. And then you think of just from like a psychological standpoint. I was in Fresh Market yesterday, and it's always so pleasant in there. You know what I mean? You can look at the people around, like people that serve you, people that walk in, the music it's just so much more peaceful. It doesn't have a funk, but then you go to my grandma's house, and right over there at the Harveys, you smell bleach at best. If not, you smell old meat. I mean, the same thing, from working with, and that was one of the reasons too why I left Walgreens, was because, when the store on A Street, which is, in the middle of, a rough part of town in Jacksonville, I was looking around. I remember one day I wanted some orange juice, and there was no orange juice at the pharmacy. I mean, it was no orange juice at Walgreens. So I was like, okay, well, maybe they get apple juice. There was no apple juice. So I talked to the manager. I said, well, I mean, we got a cooler full of beer.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? We got Krispy Kreme donuts. We got the Swiss Miss pack. We got all this type of stuff. And I just want some orange juice. Oh, people over here don't want orange juice. So I said,
they don't want it.
Simply, all these orange juice people. I mean, all these people. Yeah, you nothing good ever. But then you go to, Ponte Vedra, or you go to Atlantic Boulevard, and shoot, you got smoothies in the refrigerator. You don't have that beer over there. You know what I mean? So it's like, it really disgusted me. You know what I mean? And it was just, but in the same sense, they play to the demographic. But it's like you never even gave me an option. How can you tell me I don't like orange juice or I don't want smoothies when you never even give me the option? If all you give me is liquor and beer or whatever, just like you're saying, if I'm hungry, am I gonna eat Annihilator or I'm gonna eat, some egg whites? Well, all I know is Annihilators, and I'm addicted to it. It's got sugar in it, and we say that jokingly, but it's just like, can you expect somebody to do algebra or calculus when they had a Snicker for breakfast? No. You know what I mean? You set them up for failure. And just as a pharmacist, you kind of become a little bit of everything, because you're not quite their medical doctor, but you can give them some medical advice when they get their prescription. You're not quite their counselor, but you're talking to them about, my son is acting up in school, my mom is really, really sick, my dad is, struggling with this, I'm struggling with this. So you hear, all these problems. And, just as trying to be a good person, just as someone who's a clinician, you are, tasked to solve problems. And, the problems just keep piling and piling up. And, my thing was, how do we find the root cause? Because that's the thing. Whenever you have an infection, whenever you have, any issue, you want to find out the root cause. So, I kind of tasked myself with that. So it unfolded and made me want to run for office, because like you say, that what they're fighting is not necessarily a ghost, but it's something that they can't see, but it's always around. You know what I mean? You can't feel it, but it's beating you up. You know what I mean? You can't really
Yeah.
you can't hear it, but it's controlling your mind because you just you're so inundated with it, and you want to be like that beacon of hope. And in the desert, they always talk about that oasis. You try to be that oasis, but then you look around and you're not getting the support that you need. I remember going to city meetings, and I would see, hear about them giving so much money to, corporations who have notoriously, that, the Salvation Army, the Goodwill. And while they may do some good work, I mean, if you've been doing the same thing for 20, 30, 40, 50, 100 years and nothing's changing, I mean, I would recommend you change medication. If you take some medication, then you ain't get no different. You know what I mean? And you're not, people that want to do it are rarely getting the support, if any, that they, that they should get. So it became frustrating. But in any situation, like, you don't let the frustration just eat you up and sit in it. You keep trying to dig and do more and more and more with it. And we'll talk about it, I'm sure, later, but that's what's gotten me to this next phase in my life and my career. And I mean, I used to love going to Newtown, in the hood, in the ghetto, and I didn't get much support. But working with the nonprofit that I'm working with now, partner with the health department, I really feel great about what I'm doing. And I hope that we can, for lack of a better term, infect the community through this angle to give and provide those opportunities that I was not able to provide by myself.
Well, Doc, you went to one of the premier colleges that offer degrees in pharmacy. Let's be clear about that. Florida A&M is one of the top pharmacy producing programs for degrees in the country. And when you said these things, one thing that came to mind just now was, in your taking these classes, was there a class where professors kind of talk more about how to impact communities? And when you go out here and become a pharmacist, and you have to have these conversations, was there any type of discussions or class where you could actually talk about ways to impact the communities, especially Black communities, and you as a Black pharmacist be that conduit to helping those communities overcome some of these issues? I mean, because it just seems natural. Like you said, what's a good solution? Well, we need to teach the pharmacists not only how to get that degree in pharmacy and learn all these things scientifically, but they also need to be that person who can talk to people and change that dynamic on the way they think or the way they, put foods and things in their lives and make a difference, so that that change of mind can make a difference in the way they live. Was something like that ever done, or is it done in the university?
So it's funny because now I graduated, what's that, 14, 15 years ago now. But we had it's crazy to say that, but we definitely had pieces of that in the curriculum. And then part of your maturation or your progress through pharmacy school is you have to go out into the community. And then going out into the community, you talk to pharmacists or people that's on the ground level, on the front lines, as some would say. So, you hear them, and, they offer, different tips, and then you kind of throw your mix in there. But it's, it all encompasses going to the HBCU. You know what I mean? Like, to see somebody and that looks like you and want to help them. And that's something that I got, that I had instilled in me, but it grew even more because now you go from being that child to not only being that man, but being that practitioner, being that healthcare provider, that healthcare professional. So it kind of just, we touch on it, And some things just strike people differently. I mean, some people say, well, I want to go the corporate route because I don't believe in some of the drugs that they're pushing. I want to do that. And then others say, well, I want to be in the hospital because that's where it's needed. So I think everybody kind of finds their niche, and what their passion is. And fam, you did allow us to explore those options and really find, okay, now which direction do you want to take your level of expertise?
I'm so glad you brought that out because that brings to mind of when I thought about what you said earlier that you put into practice as bringing in the community, teaching them how to become farm techs and things like that, giving them an opportunity to earn a higher income, that kind of thing, and all of the other nuances. And then we see the other chains they're adding the nurses to their practice, so that they don't have to be the one that's answering all of the questions, because it's like, hey, I'm just pharmacy. I issue out the pills or whatever, but I have to be the counselor. So they have someone on staff for that. So for you to have brought that to your practice, I just think, that was so spot on, especially for, our community as in Newtown or what that represented, because as we all know, we have EWU in the area, Edward University. We have a whole lot of things. Dr. Shell was over there trying to do
Yeah.
some and things like that. So we're standing on their shoulders of trying to bring things back into the community to be able to help the community. So I applaud you for being so young to do that. And this is why we wanted to get your voice out there so that you can help other practitioners out there, the ones that's going through school. They'll be looking at this as well, so that they'll know what they can do and to impact their communities as well.
Yeah, I remember. It's funny, we were doing this towards the end of the year. I remember in 2015, I did a fast for the first time, like a true fast, Daniel fast, and it was like the from what I felt, what it did to me, really changed, really set me on a different path, for the rest of my life. And I started to see the world differently. I remember I used to listen to sermons, multiple throughout the day, but I remember one ended, it said, if you change the way you look at things, things you look at will change.
Yes.
And that's something that resonates with me, and I try to share that with people all the time, to where when I ride down areas that are dilapidated, that are blight everywhere, instead of seeing like looking down on it, I see opportunity. In everything there's an opportunity. While the opportunity may be tough, there's still one there. And if you got air in your lungs and your heart beating, you still got a chance. And you got to look at it like that. And the more people we have looking like that, I think that's the better. And I hate that I did subsequently leave for a little while, but that was when I was going to pursue, I felt whether it was a higher calling. And I always tell people, I mean, I've been hit by some guys, man. I've been even knocked down. I had some concussion or two, broke fingers, but nothing was as ugly as that political game. So I'm good
Mm.
on never getting back into it. But we still need people. We still need people in that. You know what I mean? And my motivation was, I did my best to keep it as clean as possible, because I always tell people I was never running against anyone. I was running for something. And I always hold true to that, and to be proud of what I did, what I tried to do, in running, because we got to hit it on all levels. You know what I mean? We got to hit it head on, face to face on a day-to-day thing. We got to hit it in DC. We got to hit it in Tallahassee. We got to hit it in City Hall, and that resonates. And that should be the play throughout the entire country. For us, because you know who's going to take care of you better than you, you
That is
know
right.
and I used to
Your
tell people.
mama.
And that's the thing, his mother, I was listening to, she's done 40 years in the school system. So I'm like, you need to be able to take care of your parents, right?
Right,
That's what we
right.
do all of this for, right? So
Yeah.
yes, at some point, Mama not gonna be able to do it. So go ahead, Earl. Go ahead and give us who we're listening to today.
Hey, this is fantastic. This is the Kitchings Table. I'm your host, W.O. Kitchings, with my co-host, Ron Lee Kennedy. Our special guest today is Dr. Albert Chester, pharmacist here in Jacksonville, Florida, a guy who has a vision. He has some things. His journey is not done yet. Former outstanding football player, both at Episcopal High School and Florida A&M. He followed in his dad's footsteps as a quarterback. He's run for Congress, and he is just putting it. It's almost like he's putting a puzzle together. So we're so glad to have him here on the Kitchings Table today as our guest to talk about our topic today, food deserts. So Al, as you had this experience, because I think your opportunity to run for public office opened up a lot of things to you and showed you some things. And I'm like you, that political game is a very ugly game, and everybody's not cut out to play that game.
Right.
And as a guy like you said, you weren't running against anybody, you were running for something. But I'm sure the experts will tell you, well, no, you got to run against somebody, because running for something, you got to get in office to run for something, but you got to run against somebody to get in the office.
Yeah.
But all that aside, I'm looking at some information where it says that there are about 88,000 pharmacies throughout the country. A lot of pharmacies are located within a couple of miles of people's communities. However, in the Black and brown communities, pharmacies are much more spread out. How can we as a community help the people who have to go to these pharmacies? Because you mentioned something earlier about the fact that if you don't have transportation to get to these pharmacies, or if you don't have transportation to get to the doctors, you're going to put that on the back burner because you just can't get there. I'm reminded of, in growing up, we had a black pharmacist, and I was telling Ron Lee this. We had a black pharmacist on the north side. He had a store. His name, the name of the store was Mervon Pharmacy. He was the only black pharmacist I ever knew of growing up. But now seeing individuals like yourself going to FAMU, and it's a blessing that FAMU decided to have a pharmacy school. I see him in you now, because you now are that person, that black pharmacist who can talk to the community and get them to see a better way. If you could change one thing, I know there are probably a lot, but if you could change one thing right now to help the dynamics of black people get healthier, what would that one thing be?
Oh man, that's a tough one. One thing.
Well, I mean, I know there are others, but everything has a priority. So you got to start with one to go to 2 to 3. But just one thing. It doesn't have to be the thing. Just one thing.
Like I hate to get, or I shouldn't say I hate, but not to get too deep, but still get deep at the same time. I always talk about a mindset and belief, and I just look at people that look like us, and they have to start believing that they just have to be, to me, they have to start believing something is better in every way. What I mean? Even the ones that may be more fortunate, just from a mentality standpoint, like I say, that fast just it turned the light bulb in me, and I just wish that, I hope that everybody I touch can get that light bulb turned on too. And I mean, understand who you are, and that who made you. And I just think the level of confidence that I try to that I project, that I have, that I try to give to others, is that, man, God wants you to be successful. He wants you to be happy. He wants you to be healthy. And if I'm not doing that, I'm going against what God wants me to do and what God made me to do. So, someone who, I've drunk, of course, alcohol before. I mean, I've tried to, smoke cigars, and I'm not knocking people that do that, but my mentality is I want to do everything I can with the opportunity God gave me to fulfill His purpose, and to be the best that I can be. I mean, God, the Creator, He made us in His image. So, that I was thinking about that in the shower. That's really, really deep. We have all these churches, and it's funny, again, you talk about, we don't lack churches in the black neighborhood.
No,
we don't. I think I counted
No,
one
we
time.
don't.
You got 35 churches on Moncrief and Myrtle alone. But it's like, what are they really teaching? Is it like, are you trying to learn God for yourself? And when I did some soul searching, and went to, the mountaintop in my own way. um I came back down, and that's what I felt. That's the message. That's the overall message. If it's one thing, believe that you're worth it. Understand that God made you, and you will want to do better. You know what I mean? You don't want to put, the marijuana, or the cocaine or the molly or whatever in your system. You want to read. You want to improve your language, your communication skills. You want your body to be fit. When you look at successful people, they are, when I do work out early in the morning. I mean, I remember jogging through my neighborhood, and like, these people are up. These CEOs, these directors, they're up working out. That's part of their lifestyle. And you look at other folks, you go to the different places, their body looks terrible, their face, it's just so much. But it's just like, because it's like, you don't believe that you're worth doing better. you know um I think that would be the one thing, to really believe in yourself and have that confidence, and to know God made you for a purpose, and to do your best to fulfill that purpose. You got to take care of yourself.
I'm so glad you said that, because when you talked about the Daniel fast, and that's kind of a friend of mine asked me to fast this week, and I'm not a stranger to fasting. I'll fast in a heartbeat. And I was thinking about the Daniel fast would be the best way to go. And when you talk about clearing your mindset, being on that fast, and I think about the doctor that I go to all the time now, and he's a stickler on, hey, get rid of that meat. Stop, just get rid of it or whatever. You'll feel so much better. Those things. Like you said, it's the mindset. It's that getting back into that the spirituality of what our parents was teaching us, our grandparents, all of our people before us. Being able to get on one accord with God, so that you can hear what he's trying to tell you. You can hear your purpose. So many people walk around and say, well, Ronline, I don't know my purpose. And I'm like, okay, gosh, you made it to 50, 60, 70 years old, and you still don't know your purpose. You still don't know why you're here. And it's like, okay, well, what are you good at? What have you done? And it's like doing those building blocks, me as a life coach, a Christian life coach, if you will, to be, or insurance agent, to be able to put all of that together, those skills together, the experiences together, to be able to bring someone into their wholeness, to help them be able to recognize that, look, you know I am somebody. Remember that phrase from
Uh-huh.
out during one. It's like, I am somebody. And you have to keep speaking those affirmations into yourself every day, in order to be able to, like you said, get up early in the morning, be able to do what you see the CEOs out there, the directors are doing, so that you can incorporate that into your lifestyle. And then your community, you'll want to give back to your community. You'll know what your purpose is. You'll be able to, like you said, stop looking at these areas as graveyards, and say, hey, if I work hard, if I got the community together, we can put a produce section there. We can do something. We can put a garden, just like I did the Black History Acknowledgement last week with Karen Williams out there in the Bronx. How she looked at it like, hey, instead of you all putting another high rise, we don't need that, but we do need a garden.
Right.
So come in, let's start getting back to the basic of gardening. At least I know what I'm tilling my soil with. I was looking at Netflix today about how our chickens are being treated, and with the salmonella outbreaks that keep happening with our produce and things like that. So at least I know I don't have any animals pooping in, nearby, whatever. So give us a solution. And by the way, you are our Black History Acknowledgement today, Dr. Chester. So tell us, what kind of solutions would you, and it goes back to what I was saying to you earlier about why you ran for office. You said, I wasn't running for against anybody. I was running for something. So how were you trying to use, if you had gotten into office, How are you trying to use that in order to change things, to bring solutions? And and now that you're not in office, what can you still do in order to bring solutions?
So, you know, we can talk about, the heartfelt, and what it does to the spirit, and that's important. That's key. However, at the same time, we live in America. Capital is king. Cash is king, and surprisingly, pharmacy is, I don't know, another business where I would fill prescriptions and lose money, because that was the initial issue, and let's say I would fill maybe 100 prescriptions and I would probably make $200. You can't keep your doors open like that. You know what I mean? And the issues with the insurance companies was my initial thing, and I tried to explain that to politicians, but a lot of times they just didn't understand. That their level of expertise or the level of knowledge wasn't there, and I didn't really feel like they were trying to understand. So I wanted to stay there, but I knew it was going to be tough. When you talk about the opioid epidemic, how that was spawned or created, it wasn't just drug companies, it was the necessity just to keep the doors open. And I refused to operate a business to where in order for me to keep my doors open, I got to push poison. So that sparked me to want to run and say, hey, these insurance companies aren't doing this right. I'm sure there's grants, I'm sure there's money appropriations to where somebody like me, I'm sure I'm not the only person in America that's doing this. Like, where's some funding for that? You got funding for all type of crazy stuff. You got funding to repave roads on other sides of towns, but it's potholes here. It was a lot. So that was my initial cause, to try to get that right, because you're not going to have people or corporation or businesses come in areas, at least small businesses like mine, and hope to not just survive but thrive, in a sense, because whatever I got, I poured it back in the community. And you're not going to get that a lot of times with major corporations. They'll say they do it, but it's nothing like that.
Yeah, well, I'm sure that those things that Al is talking about are so important, Ronleen. And I'm looking at some information that I pulled up online this morning, and it states that 40% of U.S. counties are considered pharmacy deserts, and that states that people have to drive more than 15 minutes to get to a pharmacy. So when you talk about 40% of all U.S. counties in America, 40%. I mean, so if there are, let's just say, 100,000 counties, 40,000 of them are pharmacy deserts. People have to drive over 15 minutes to get to a pharmacy and to get to a pharmacist to discuss their medical situations. So if the pharmacy is 15 minutes, are the doctors that they have to go see, are they 15 minutes away too? Uh, are the grocery stores 15 minutes away? So when we talk about pharmacy deserts, and a lot of these deserts are in rural communities, because in rural communities, they're smaller. There's one of everything. And if you have a farm and the town that you're closest to is a 15-minute drive, of course you're going to be that far away from getting to the help that you're going to need. So the pharmacy and food desert, to me, are connected simply because each one of them depends on the other in order for there to be a better solution to the problem. Because if you have to go too far to get the food, or you have to go too far to get your drugs, then sometimes you just say the heck with it. I'm not driving over there. I'm not going over there. So that is part of the problem. Al, I was just telling Ronleen that in looking at some information, 40% of all counties in the United States are considered pharmacy deserts, which means people have to drive more than 15 minutes to get to a pharmacy. And then also looking at some information, profit-related pharmacy closures, insurance plans dropping pharmacies, inequitable vaccine distribution have all played a part of these pharmacy deserts. So talk a little bit about, the fact that our country is so, I guess, fractured or fragmented when we talk about food and pharmacy, because they got to be joined at the hip. You got to have both in order to be a healthy person.
Yeah, for sure. And the unfortunate part is, I remember it takes me back. I used to watch Lean on Me all the time with Morgan Freeman. He was saying that they were establishing a system to create a permanent underclass, and
Right.
that's what that's what you have to do. I mean, the top never have to do anything. In the middle, while fighting and scraping to survive, they're causing. We got to take care of the of the less fortunate, and then we even get tax higher than the rich. So it is just it's a really ugly cycle. And I guess, like, not to get too political on the show, but I saw that there wasn't much difference between red and blue. And that was really disgusting and upsetting to me. And I saw one side as equal and opposite of the other, nevertheless not meeting in the middle to help me out or to move a cause outside of their own forward. You got, how can Miss Jones compete with these big Progressive or State Farm or Florida Blue or whoever, not just throwing names out there, when it comes to what they want to get done. It's just really tough. So what do you do? And again, you take the multi-step approach, and we've let people sit in offices past their term. I used to use the reference or the metaphor or whatever, of that TV that your mama and them got a long time ago was real good when your daddy got it in there, but that was back in 1975, and that ain't gonna cut it in 2023. So when I look around, I look at the U.S. Congress, in different places, it just kind of just makes me sick. You know what I mean? Like, your brain isn't functioning on that level right now.
Right.
So it got frustrating because they don't know the issues. I mean, I love my granddad and grandma to death. I go over and see them every day, but I can't expect them to think like me. They can't expect themselves to think like me. I mean, time has moved on. Time has, and we've let these people have such a stranglehold, and just egocentric to a point to where they don't know how to get out of the way. And when you look at the best time when the most changes was happening, the changes that we're still living off, the Dr. Kings, the Malcolm X's, the Medgar Evers, the people during that time, the Huey P. Newtons. I mean, all those folks. I mean, the list goes on. It was the young that moved the needle, because you got the energy, you got the history, you got the knowledge. And those older folks at the time, I mean, they wasn't there, so I guess it wasn't them to necessarily get out of the way. But we got to get to where we're not trying to use an iPhone 1 when they're on the iPhone 15 in our community. And that's just plain and simple. It's not saying I'm putting, you're shooting a dead horse because it can't run anymore. It's just understanding that your role has shifted. And if you don't get out of the way, you become stagnant. If you become stagnant, then you're not growing. If you're not growing, you're essentially dying.
Last question before we get to our Black History moment, Al. As a young man, as a father of two, how do you get that generation to understand your viewpoint and the vision that you've had based on your experiences, so that they can help turn the page and turn the corner for their generation and their future families?
Well, that's a tough one, because I realized I wasn't cool the other day when I had some white Nikes on, and my son was like, "What you doing with that type of swag on? You don't do that." I was like, "Listen, I wear shoes for comfort. We going out. I just wanted to have something nice." "Oh, okay." I'm like, "Daddy not cool?" He was like, "Nah, you ain't cool."
No, you.
But what I try to do, and that was something I believe my parents, did, is the exposure, the exposure and the conversation. I don't take for granted that, at this point, my time with my kids are limited. Just the fact that I work, they go to school. So anytime we're together, it's like, let's have some time. We put the phone up. Let's put the social media up. Let's have a conversation. You know what I mean? Let's go somewhere and have some conversations about what we're seeing. So they can get a level of appreciation that has to be taught. Appreciation definitely has to be taught. And I think, teaching someone who they are, giving them that history, empowering them, will help generate and spark those new ideas while still remembering the past and respecting people that came before you. So exposure and conversation is definitely something I try to do.
Well, Al, man, this was too short. We didn't have enough time to really go a little bit deeper. I hope that we can bring you back on a future day in 2024 so we can dive and delve into this a little bit more, because after the Christmas holidays, now that we've got past Thanksgiving, everybody got full on Thanksgiving, and we're going to do it again in Christmas. People need to talk about the ways, because all people always talking about, well, I'm going on a diet January 1st. Yeah, whatever. But to bring you back at a future time to continue this conversation, I look forward to it. But right now, I'm going to turn it over to Ronleen, because this is her time for her Black History Moment. Thanks again so much for being with us today.
Hey, thanks for having me. Can't wait to do it again.
Okay.
Ronleen?
So we're out of time, but Dr. Chester, just let us know what are the solutions. I'm gonna give you 1 minute. What are solutions?
Oh, so we
that not for profit organization. So what are the solutions?
Solutions for the community, just solutions, period.
What is desert?
Okay,
The
so
apartheid, the drug apartheid. What are the solutions?
So I mean, it's you got the individuals, you got the micro, and you got the macro level. I think again, I encourage people to get out and vote, to understand what you're voting for. Learn what's going on around you. Don't just take Facebook news as Facebook news. Look at CNN. Look at for us, Channel 4. Look at Channel 12. Really get involved in the world around you, and don't just take things for what they are and just accept it and then complain. You know what I mean? Take ownership. If I could tell anybody, if I could drop anything on anybody's head, take ownership for your life and be responsible for yourself, and everything else will eventually take care of itself. And live your dream, live your passion, and do it like it's your last day, every day.
All right. Well, you heard that from Dr. Chester. All right, Earl, take it away.
All right. So our guest today has been Dr. Albert Chester, pharmacist here in the Jacksonville, Florida area. We thank him for being here with us. We hope that we will get a chance to talk with him again, because this food desert problem is a true problem. So until next Tuesday morning at 10 o'clock here on the Kitchings Table, I'm W.O. Kitchings, the host, for Ronleen Kennedy and Dr. Albert Chester. We thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next time. And as we always say, do something good for somebody else today. Take care, everybody.